Dear truckers of the world, what kind of weird, filthy, fun or shocking stories can you tell us that you encountered on highway service stations? Fun story. I stopped at a gas station for my mandatory break and went to get a snack. When I came back, a guy with a camera asked me if I wanted to pose for a photo shoot with my truck. I was suspicious, but agreed. He shot some pictures and seemed to know what he was doing. I gave him my email address and a few days later I got the pictures. They were awesome, super well done. They still hang in the break room of my company. Had to gas up and use the restroom at a truck stop some years ago. The only place for miles. The place was busy and the ladies' room only had 2 stalls and 1 sink, so I line up outside. Why was it so busy? There were 2 women with a passel of kids in there. At least 3 of the smallest kids were naked from the waist down. They apparently all had the shits and were shitting on the floor. The 2 moms were trying to clean the kids when what they needed was a power washer for both the kids in the small room. I had to piss and I survived, but this was the only time in my life that I contemplated throwing away shoes rather than continue wearing them in the car. I blocked out the memory of what I did with my shoes. It was horrific. Not a trucker. But I was near this place called Nirbhaya, India, years ago. It is situated in a region with lots of rainforest. The state highway passed through the forest belt and I couldn't find any buses to board. It was raining quite heavily and the absence of many vehicles indicated a landslide elsewhere. Finally, a trucker gave me lift and soon we started to chat to pass the time. Suddenly, he pressed the brakes. I didn't realize why until I saw a tiger standing on the middle of the road just staring at the vehicle. Mind you, it was a small truck and we were just stunned. I couldn't explain if it was fear or awe as we sat there looking at the glowing eyes, due to the vehicle lights. I guess a few minutes passed by, seemed like hours though, and her cubs suddenly came through the foliage on the other side of the road. As soon as they went she disappeared. It was an awesome experience. After they passed by he quickly started the engine and we were on our way. We couldn't speak to each other for about an hour or so. We were simply thrilled by the sudden appearance of a large animal. Had a few interesting ones over the last few years. The one that stands out the most was being woken up by gunshots at 4 in the morning at a truck stop just outside of Alabama. I got out of my bunk and there was some big, burly dude wearing nothing but a pair of flip-flops and a wife-beater waving a gun around and screaming that some lot lizard, hooker, had stolen his money. Police showed up a few minutes later. He refused to cooperate. Finally, this female cop tased him while another one tackled him. Glad nobody got seriously hurt, but was hilarious when the cops tased him and dragged him off in his flip-flops and nothing else since he had thrown his shirt at one of the cops. Another time, in Texas, I saw a Japanese guy with his family walking around a truck stop lot. He kept walking up to drivers, would talk a few minutes, then walk away. Didn't think much of it until I started to go inside and he approached me and my co-driver. I asked if there was something I could help him with and he asked if there were any truck stop ladies around. I asked why he wanted a lot lizard, especially with his wife and kids there, and he said that he wanted to get a picture of his family with one since it was the first time his family had ever stopped at a truck stop. And they had already taken a picture with a driver, a truck, and by the diesel pumps. I just wished him good luck and went about my business. Not a trucker, but I was refueling at a large truck stop, and a small bus from a casino pulled up to the pump next to me. I was wearing a Seattle Seahawks sweatshirt, and I am NFL lineman sized 6 feet 6 inches 290 pounds. The bus was full of Japanese tourists being transported from SeaTac to a local tribal casino resort. Suddenly a few of Japanese left the bus and were taking my photo, and were waving at me from the bus. This young college kid who was acting as translator then got out of the bus laughing and said he told the bus that I was a star player for the Seahawks, and wanted to know if I would play along and let them take my picture. I told him how about one better, and had around 20 Japanese tourists leave the bus, and surround me for a group photo. Hopefully they never try to look up my NFL career extracurricular. Backstory: went through a time where I wanted to do enforcement work, scale house etc. Got a chance to work at a inspection station for a day. Call comes over the radio for a truck having a hard time keeping the lane, hitting the rumble strips, possibly drunk. He's approaching the station officer. I'm with turns on the lights and figures he'll pull in and we can talk to them. Guy pulls around back for inspection. Officer asks if I can go out back and talk to him, make sure he has all his documents in order and he'll be out in a minute. I walk up to the truck, older man driving. Make sure he's got his documents. Noticed his eyes were red and he appeared to have just gotten through a good tear fest. I ask him if he's okay and he begins to say he was driving and was having a breakdown thinking about his wife who passed away and he thought he was fine but it was catching up with him. The story of his wife's passing was they drove together for quite some time. They stopped at a truck stop for dinner and to stop for some sleep. He stopped by the entrance to the truck stop so she could go in and get food ordered. It's late at night, she gets out, he heard the door close, and grabbed a gear and went to go find a spot. Well, she fell on the way out and he had not noticed over the sound of the motor. When he drove away he crushed her with the truck as she laid on the concrete. I stood there white-faced and shocked about this tragic story. The kicker to all this is myself, at the time being a relatively green CDL driver, asked when it happened. It was the week before and he couldn't afford to take time off because he was an owner-operator barely scraping by, and I remember him saying to me, I care, but the bank don't give a fuck. So here I sit, poor soul, out there dealing with that news. I think about him from time to time. To this day I'm always hyper-aware of people near any vehicle or equipment I'm operating. Be safe out there. Edit. Oh wow, thanks folks for the awards and upticks. I hope that if you drive or are a pedestrian, always keep a lookout. It can happen anywhere. Please make sure to like, subscribe and comment for more.